Once, in a quiet village surrounded by dense woods and rolling hills, lived a young man named Tunde. Known for his carefree and mischievous nature, Tunde often mocked the traditions and beliefs the elders held dear. While most villagers respected the spirits of their ancestors and treated sacred sites with reverence, Tunde dismissed these as mere superstitions. One warm evening, Tunde and his friends gathered near the village cemetery to play hide and seek. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars appeared, an eerie calm settled over the cemetery. The older boys warned, "Don't stray too far, Tunde. The spirits here are not to be trifled with." But Tunde scoffed. "They're just bones in the ground. Nothing to be afraid of," he said, puffing out his chest. His friends shook their heads, urging him not to mock, but Tunde wouldn't listen. As the game wore on, Tunde felt the call of nature. Instead of heading to the edge of the woods, he decided to relieve himself in the cemetery. Why walk all the way to the bushes when there's no one here to care? He thought. He chose a grave covered in moss, unaware of whose resting place it was, and with a smirk, he urinated on it. Almost immediately, the air grew unnaturally cold. A strange silence fell over the area, and even the crickets stopped chirping. Tunde laughed nervously and called out, "See, nothing happened." But as he turned to rejoin his friends, he tripped over a root that hadn't been there before, landing hard on his hands and knees. His friends, watching from a distance, chuckled at his clumsiness, unaware of the unnatural stillness that had enveloped the cemetery. That night, Tunde's troubles began. As he lay in bed, a cold draft swept through his room, though the windows and doors were tightly shut. Faint whispers filled the air, calling his name in a chilling tone. Tunde, Tunde. Startled, he sat up, heart pounding. His blanket slid off the bed as if pulled by unseen hands. Terrified, he ran to his parents' room. "Something is in my room," he cried, trembling. His father, irritated, dismissed his fears and checked the room, finding nothing amiss. But as the days passed, Tunde's experiences grew worse. He felt watched at all times, even in broad daylight. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of his vision, and the whispers became more insistent. In his dreams, a hollow-eyed figure, shrouded in mist, appeared, speaking in a low, rasping voice. "You have defiled my resting place. Make amends, or you will find no peace." Each time, Tunde woke drenched in sweat, the words echoing in his ear. Unable to endure the torment, Tunde confided in his mother. She listened with a grave expression and took him to the village elder, Baba Aran, a wise man respected for his knowledge of the spiritual realm. After hearing Tunde's story, Baba Aran sighed deeply. "You have angered a restless spirit," he said. "You must seek forgiveness and restore what was disturbed." Baba Aran prepared for the ritual. He instructed Tunde and his mother to gather palm oil, white chalk, kola nuts, and a rooster. On the evening of the cleansing, they returned to the cemetery. Under Baba Aran's guidance, Tunde knelt before the grave he had desecrated. The elder drew a protective circle around the site and chanted prayers, calling upon the ancestors to witness the atonement. With a trembling voice, Tunde apologized to the spirit, tears streaming down his face. "I was wrong to disrespect your resting place. Please forgive me and allow me to make things right." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a cold wind swept through the cemetery, and the ground trembled slightly. A voice echoed from the grave, cold and sharp. "Your apology is heard, but it is not enough. You must right the wrong done to me in life before I can rest." That night, the spirit appeared again in Tunde's dream. "I was betrayed in life. My name is Adekanle. Seek the truth, bring justice to my name, and I will leave you in peace." Guided by Baba Aran, Tunde began researching the history of the grave. Through old records and conversations with the village elders, he learned that Adekanle had been a kind and generous man who had met a tragic end. He was betrayed by a close friend, a respected village elder, who had framed him for a crime he didn't commit out of jealousy. Determined to make amends, Tunde confronted the elder, presenting the evidence he had gathered. The elder, overcome with guilt, confessed to his wrongdoing. The truth was revealed to the village, and Adekanle's name was clear. With the betrayal exposed, Tunde and Baba Aran performed a final ritual at the grave. They offered libations and prayers, asking the spirit to find peace. As they finished, a warm breeze swept through the cemetery, and Tunde felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The spirit was gone. From that day forward, Tunde became a man of deep respect for the sacred. He often shared his story with others, warning them of the consequences of disrespecting the unseen. His experience served as a reminder to the village that the past must be honored and the spirits of the departed treated with reverence. Story number 2. The Cursed Drums of Amadou. In a small West African village, nestled between the baobab trees, there was a legend about the sacred talking drums of Amadou. These drums, carved from the oldest trees in the forest and adorned with intricate carvings, were said to hold the voices of the ancestors. They were played only during sacred ceremonies, to summon rain, to celebrate the harvest, or to honor the spirits of the departed. The village griot, an elderly man named Baba Kwame, was the keeper of the drums. He guarded them zealously and warned everyone. These drums are not for play. To disrespect them is to awaken the wrath of the ancestors. But one young man, Kofi, was not one to follow rules. Kofi, the village troublemaker, had always been curious about the drums. To him, they were not sacred relics, but simply old instruments gathering dust. He often boasted to his friends, "One day, I'll play those drums, and when I do, I'll show the world there's nothing to fear." His friends laughed nervously, reminding him of the tales of those who dared to touch the drums without permission. "Do you want to be cursed?" they warned. But Kofi dismissed their concerns, waving them off. "It's just a story to keep children in line," he said, his grin wide. One fateful night, during the dry season, the village gathered for the annual moon festival. The villagers danced and sang under the full moon, their joy lighting up the night. Baba Kwame was busy leading the festivities, and the drums were left unattended in it. Kofi saw his chance. As the villagers celebrated, he slipped away into the shadows and crept into Baba Kwame. There, in the flickering light of an oil lamp, the sacred drums sat, their polished surfaces gleaming. Kofi's heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. With a deep breath, he sat before the largest drum and raised his hands. "Let's see if these drums can really talk," he muttered. Then he struck the drum. The sound was unlike anything Kofi had ever heard. The beats seemed to echo endlessly, reverberating through the air and into his very... Suddenly, the lamp's flame flickered violently, and the room grew icy cold. The carvings on the drums seemed to writhe and twist, forming faces contorted in anger. A voice boomed, deep and thunderous. Terrified, Kofi tried to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The air grew heavy, and the walls of the hut seemed to close. Shadows gathered, forming the shapes of figures clad in traditional robes, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly... "You have disrespected us," the spirit said, their voices overlapping in a haunting chorus. "You will pay for your arrogance." With a flash of blinding light, Kofi collapsed. When he awoke, he was outside, lying in the village square. The villagers surrounded him, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. Baba Kwame stood over him, his expression... "What have you done, Kofi?" the elder demanded. Before Kofi could answer, a chilling wail filled the air. The drums, though untouched, began to play themselves, their rhythm chaotic and deaf. The baobab trees trembled, and the ground cracked. The villagers fled in terror, but Baba Kwame stayed, his face pale. The ancestors are angry, he said. Kofi, you must make this. Kofi, now trembling, fell to his knees. I didn't mean any harm. What do I do? Baba Kwame sighed heavily and said, You must undertake the journey of atonement. You must go to the sacred forest of Niamey and seek the oracle. Only she can guide you. The villagers prepared Kofi for the journey, giving him provisions and a small token of protection, a necklace of cowrie shells blessed by Baba Kwame. With the elders' prayers, Kofi set off at dawn. The sacred forest of Niamey was a place of mystery and danger. It was said to be home to spirits, beasts, and trials that tested the soul. As Kofi ventured deeper, the air grew thick with mist, and the sounds of the outside world faded away. His first trial came in the form of a massive serpent blocking his path. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and his hiss was like a whispered curse. Kofi froze, but the serpent, Why should I let you pass, mortal? You have no respect for the sake. Kofi, trembling, knelt before the serpent. I was foolish and arrogant, he said. I seek to make amends. The serpent regarded him for a long moment before slithering aside. Humility will guide you, but your journey is far from over. Deeper into the forest, Kofi faced his second trial, a river that flowed with fire instead of water. On the other side stood an old woman with a staff, her eyes milky white. To cross, you must offer a piece of your soul, she said. Kofi hesitated. What does that mean? The woman smiled faintly. You must give up your pride. Speak the truth of your heart, and the river will part. With tears in his eyes, Kofi confessed his deepest fear, that he had always felt small and unimportant, and his arrogance was a mask for his insecurity. As he spoke, the fiery river cooled, and a path of stones emerged. Finally, Kofi reached the oracle, a figure cloaked in shimmering light. She spoke without moving her lips. Kofi bowed deeply. I have disrespected the ancestors and seek their forgiveness. Please, guide. The oracle placed her hand on Kofi's head, and he saw visions of the village, the sacred drums, and the spirit. You must return and play the drums, not with arrogance, but with reverence. Play the song of unity, and the ancestors will be appeased. When Kofi returned to the village, the drums were still playing themselves, their chaotic rhythm tearing at the fabric of reality. Baba Kwame guided Kofi to the hut, where he knelt before the drum. With trembling hands, Kofi played the rhythm the oracle had shown him in his vision. Slowly, the chaos subsided, and the drums fell silent. A warm breeze swept through the village, and the shadows receded. The voice of the ancestors spoke one last time. You have learned respect. Do not forget this. From that day on, Kofi became a protector of the sacred, teaching others the importance of tradition and humility. The drums remained in the care of Baba Kwame, and the village lived in peace, their bond with the ancestors stronger than ever.